You're alive? Am I alive? I'm in Spain, so I don't know. We've got a great show. We're talking about RBAC exploits, conference summaries, and you are going to be doing a live demo of
KubeVisor. Yes, welcome to C9K. That's C9K in the streets, clusterfuck in the sheets. I'm Mike Foster. That's Steve Giguere. It's been a very, very long time. Welcome back, and I hope you had a great couple weeks off.
All right. I'm going to apologize in advance for whatever goes wrong with my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so it's been a couple weeks. Steve and I are obviously pretty rusty. A lot's been going on. Steve's been at KubeCon, BSides, RSA. I've been just chilling in Toronto, waiting for him to get a decent Wi-Fi connection. So now we're back. Got a great show planned. It's almost too packed. I had to cut a bunch of stuff out. So, when we come back in 2 weeks, it's 2 weeks this Friday, we'll have another pack show, which I'm going to make you do a demo on because KubeVisor. Actually, I'm not going to lie. KubeVisor was super fun, super easy. I got some cool insights for you to check out during tool time to pick your brain on. I think the way they do security is pretty cool.
Cool.
So yeah, that's good. Before we get into the general news, I wanted to pick your brain. KubeCon, BSides, RSA. Talk about maybe each one. Give me your 30-second breakdown of each one, and then I have a couple questions for each.
Okay, cool. I'll do them in order of experience. So KubeCon EU was in Amsterdam, which I can conclude was a fantastic city to have an international conference. I've been there before because I live relatively close. But yeah, I love it. Conference center was good. It was in the south of the city, which I hadn't spent a whole lot of time in. Very conferencey, very businessy. But the public transport was basically South Station to Central. Took like 10 minutes and you're right in the heart of Amsterdam. So if you want to experience the city, you had it right there at your fingertips, yet you weren't right in it. The venue was awesome. In comparison, last year with Valencia looked like you were in an airport hangar with large black drapes separating everybody. So the noise pollution was huge. This one seemed like a little bit better thought out in terms of just a conference center. It was nice. And the content was solid. I'm starting to feel, I don't know what you think about this because you've been to a lot of the American KubeCons, but I've been to enough in a row now that I'm actually looking for content I've not seen, but I don't feel as repackaged from a previous one. Mm-hmm. Like really proper new innovation and innovative talks were there, but it was tough to get to them. And as usual, the size of the conference now means that if you didn't spend a half a day at least planning your conference, you easily blow a day.
Yeah.
Not doing anything. What was interesting is like the conference, the vendor floor was freaking huge. And it did actually feel like attendees were into the vendor area enthusiastically, even though it wasn't necessarily, how sometimes they make you have to go to the vendor area by putting it with a lunch area, kind of squeezing it in there. It just seemed everybody was keen on it.
I heard there was a whole section just for startups and that there was a lot of companies there. I heard that the vendor floor was massive.
It was cuckoo. Like there were stalls people had paid for. Not gonna say, but where it's just a one-person booth and a TV playing a video on repeat, no person.
Wow.
Like wow, you paid for that. I mean, either that person was constantly in the toilet, or they just had. I saw a few like that, and and they were small stalls. They're like, one person standing in front of a tiny wall, and there's just a whole array of them. So it really, given it's only it's not the longest conference. If you exploring the vendor floor can take half a day, picking some talks can take half a day. You barely get time to take in what you want to see. But I thought, as usual, it was good because I guess the pluses are that everybody was there. I still think the EU ones are better than the American ones because a lot of American contributors still come to the EU ones because the cities are awesome, right? I'm not taking a crack at Detroit here, or maybe I am.
Yeah, you might get more European people coming if you're willing to host it in a nicer area. Let's just say. Yeah, I completely agree. I compare that to RSA, which has been in California for forever, right? Which has been done for forever. How long has RSA been around? I want to say 20 something.
You know what? Good point. No idea. Yeah, it feels like I wonder what I would love to take a time machine back to RSA and just see what it was like when, kind of when nobody really thought about security, even if you go 20 years ago, right? It was like the idea of security was, I don't know, it must have been pretty small. It's probably like the BSides that preceded it. The BSides was on a weekend. The usual people were there again. The talks were small. Everything, having a good schedule was easy to achieve. Unfortunately, at that one, I'd actually sit at a vendor booth. So even though I had a tick box list of things I wanted to see, I saw almost none of them. But it was so easy to navigate. I'm a huge fan of all the BSides type things because they're just so simple, so small. And I still love the idea that they have this security style that you get a badge, but your name's not on the badge. So they have this kind of privacy thing where the vendors don't get to scan you. Your names aren't there unless you say what your name is. Vendors get to come, they don't get talks, and they don't know who you are.
So what's the advantage of a vendor? Just to get your name out there? It's more branding?
Yeah, it's not, well, all right. Comparing the vendor perspective, RSA, I saw, if you weren't at RSA, in fact, I spoke to one of the vendors at RSA and said, this is so dense. As big as KubeCon was, RSA had a north and south. You had to cross the street to see all the vendors, like 2 whole halls of vendors. And they were all huge. And I asked one of them, it's like, who I knew somebody who worked there. And it's like, do you get, is there an ROI on this?
Yeah. And
they said, more like everyone's here. And if we're not, it gets noticed.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I feel like that's become. But otherwise, actually, I thought the content at RSA was pretty good. But because it's just a generic security conference, not like, say, SecurityCon Cloud Native, where it feels it's really in our wheelhouse, there was stuff from just everywhere, every aspect, from car hacking to satellites to, it was a bit more like Black Hat. It was so widespread, the subject matter. It could take you forever to navigate again, but I thought for some reason I felt it was a little easier. I don't know.
So yeah,
incredibly commercial.
So what was one new thing? I feel like when we were in Detroit, when you're in the different KubeCons, Valencia, I feel like they try to do one thing different every time. But was it general, you had the drink passes, you had the vendor booth, walk around, like KubeCon EU, was there anything new, or is it kind of the same format, just better location?
All right. Maybe it was to do with the location. At KubeCon, there was this monstrous chill lounge that was neither the vendor area. It wasn't you trying to find a bench or people sitting against walls. There was just a massive area where you could just kind of chill. And I thought that was awesome. Surrounded by coffee machines. Yeah, that I hadn't clocked that before. It wasn't just the lunch area. It was just a massive beanbag chairs and yeah, that I'd love to see that at other events, because sometimes you just I think on the first day I did something like 32,000 steps.
Yeah.
and a beanbag was a very welcome sight.
Yeah, the only place to sit down is pretty much in the cafeteria when you're eating, and it's on those terrible chairs. By the end of the week, your feet are so sore, you're just ready to collapse. I don't know how you did 2 of those or 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
So
you were in. No, I'm exhausted. And then I came to Spain and was at an ultimate frisbee tournament. I make bad decisions.
Yeah. I'm not going to fight you on that one. Any other big announcements, things that you saw, things that people should want to know about? I have a whole list of vendor announcements, but curious if you saw anything.
Maybe it was still supply chain con in a way. My colleague Matt, who you know, for KubeCon we went and asked everybody 2 questions and filmed it. It's actually on the Bridge Crew playlist on YouTube, and we just said what's top of mind in terms of security, and there's a little video that just has everybody going supply chain over and over again. And then it was we asked everybody how they define. I mean, that was probably the main question. Another one was about how do people define application security, just to show that people are confused about what it means, and we succeeded. But otherwise, it was still supply chain fest. We haven't changed topic yet.
Still a supply chain fest. All right.
Yeah.
That's that could be a hot take. I feel like a hot take around application security is incoming for you.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, we do have the hot take after the general news. Anything else, or are we good to crack on?
Let's crack on.
Let's do it. So Steve's running the show, sharing his screen from, where are you again?
I'm in Barcelona.
Barcelona. So we'll see how this goes. If not, I may have to take over. That being said, if we're going to kick this in here, the first ever attack leveraging Kubernetes RBAC to backdoor clusters. Yes, the first ever misconfiguration. The first. And I think you sent this to me, correct?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What was your take on it? You first.
I lost a little bit of maybe interest when it said there was an API server with anonymous authentication still active, and then they went from there. And I thought, well, if they've got a honeypot, this is a honeypot, right? Mm-hmm. So they put something out there. They make a Kubernetes cluster. You can see the cluster, and they have anonymous authentication enabled. So they must just get nonstop abuse on that honeypot. And then I guess what they figured the clever bit was the establishment of, you can see it here, cluster role binding with lots of stars in order to be persistent. And they said post patch. Did you read that? I'm like, it's not a patch. It's just who's deploying a cluster set up like that in modern times? But I did think it was kind of clever. And they have this evidence here where they're saying they have this malicious container that's kind of typo squatting. That's been polled nearly 15,000 times, right? And they found 60 exposed clusters based on that. So I guess the attack is real, but it's just the interesting part of this, if I distill it down, is really there's still people out there with clusters that aren't also other honeypots.
Yeah.
That you can run this on?
Yeah. And I mean, just saying this is the first time that it's ever been seen in a honeypot like this. I don't know. I don't think it's the first time this has ever happened, but maybe the first time that a security research team has ever publicized it. That being said, so this came out, and then about
I've got your other one if you want me to do it.
Yeah, what day did that came out? I think it came out the 23rd, and by the following day, Red Hat had a response. 21st, so 3 days later.
24th, yeah. Yeah, what was the response?
Yeah,
so
close to home for you. I believe that the original article said that their honeypot's an OpenShift cluster, and that they switched it after. And so that's why Red Hat had such a quick response on this to say, yeah, this is not a thing. We do not have unauthenticated API servers available. They have reconfigured the honeypot to do this. So not only is it like not accurate, but they've made changes in order to make it more vulnerable, which in that case, it's like, you know, come on, if I put my password on the internet, I get hacked. I'm not saying like this is an issue with, you know, passcodes, right?
Yeah.
So I think to some extent it's a lot of marketing, but I don't know. That's what I've been told. I figured it was a good point just to say, hey, you know, misconfigurations obviously happen. Don't leave unauthorized API servers or unauthenticated users. You know, do just your due diligence. You're not going to have any issues about this. But it caused enough of a stir that we had to do a response and
Wow.
a couple internal emails to people basically saying like, yeah, this is not a thing. Like, and it's still coming up.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, good for
That's
product
pretty
security
fun.
for getting back, but also it's, you know, when you're in ProdSec and you're going to publish these things just to, you know, lift up Trivy, let's say, as an example, it gets annoying. It gets annoying as somebody who has to answer those emails.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I will say the Aqua research team is pretty good.
Oh yeah,
but that wasn't the most mind-blowing discovery.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a valid article. It's just the marketing title, like first ever exploited,
Yeah.
blah, 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 in our honeypot where we've set it up to be exploited. Just doesn't. I think it's disingenuous. Or maybe, you know, the researchers are just basically saying, hey, we found this issue. Somebody actually did it. They managed to gain persistence in our cluster. We have to wipe it. And then marketing got a hold of it. Like, how can we turn this into an article? Right. So
we can promote.
Yeah.
That's feels like an Onion article. It says, you know, first ever break and enter as a result of leaving house with doors wide open. Attackers persisted by taking the keys off the key rack.
Yeah, that's spot on. All right, we got two more. I don't want to take up too much of the time here. I just had one cool. You can just go to the next one. One cool thing I wanted to ping people and show people about. I had this issue where when I swap phones, all of a sudden Google Auth didn't map over, right? So you do an iPhone backup, you swap it over, you have to go into all your accounts and re-authenticate your two-factor. Now you don't have to do that. Awesome, because that was I've been locked out of a Twitter account for a year now, and Twitter does not want to seem to give me access to this account because they don't trust me, even though I have all of the I just don't have the backup code. That's the issue. But yeah, so I think that this is good. I also had a question about the engineering of this. This means Google is storing those two factors somewhere else as well. So now you've kind of gotten rid of the whole reason for two-factor. So I'm like, if somebody hacks the two-factor server, then they have the codes, then there goes two-factor. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and I will throw 2 cents on this, saying LastPass, which gets hacked, it seems daily. They've been doing this for a while, and the way they're storing whatever it is they're storing is this sort of zero knowledge storage system. So it is possible for this to work. Yeah. LastPass, thankfully, keeps demonstrating it.
Yeah, 1Password I know does two-factor as well. It's obviously just getting saved somewhere else. It just depends on your provider and how much you trust them. Still is pretty hard to weaponize, but
yeah. Good news, anyway.
And then I think the last one before our hot take, you posted this bypassing vulnerability scanners by our friend.
Yeah, this is Roy McCune, aka Racine, and I still forget why he's called that, but oh well. He did a presentation at EU, which there's a reason why I didn't mention it, because it was in the article, with various heroes of Kubernetes security, right? Brad Giesemann, Duffy, and Ian Coldwater. Reflections. There was more in there than what's here. I think he alludes to that. And I didn't actually think the GitHub link was clear, but he was talking about what container vulnerability scans look for. I think it's a pretty simple article. Like, he's just basically making a container that obfuscates or security by obscurity. So he unpacks the contents, what he wants the contents of the scanner to be after it's running. And so it's suddenly like, okay, it worked. And what's funny is he used to work at Aqua as well, and he said it bypassed Trivy. So I guess he knows. But what did you think on this as a very simple method of bypassing scanners? It seems too easy and too successful.
It is, and it isn't. I mean, if you're building the Docker image that way with a tar file in it, and you're doing your unpack after, and you have a scanner that can't go in and scan things, I think it should raise a flag. And I'd almost say, typically, like, let's say you have your workloads, your development team is all in there, however they're setting it up, and a new image comes in, and it comes in with no vulnerabilities, but it's a new image and it has a misconfiguration. You should be able to identify a new workload, even if that's the case, and then go to the Docker file and see, hey, why can't I see anything associated with this, this layer, right? So if you're looking at the Docker image, it's from scratch, image.tar, copy main, you should look and say, hey, this layer, there's no vulnerabilities associated with it. Why is it getting skipped? What's in it, right? I know you can do that in ACS. I'm assuming with most security tools, when it can break it down by layer, you can see the vulnerabilities associated with each one. You're not going to have that issue. I think the advantage of this is if you were able to get into a pipeline and swap everything out and just add that one line to a workload that's already running, then it becomes kind of dangerous, right? So you have a developer who's not having the best week and decides to do something like that. Then it would pass the scanners and throw you for a loop, right? But it's pretty tough, especially when you have developers who work on a project day to day, and all of a sudden somebody just injects something. How does that get past code review? How does that get, it might get into the testing stage, but hopefully you have eyes on it.
Yeah, I'm also, as a tip for scanners to learn from this, and I feel that commercial scanners, as opposed to open source ones that it looks like they tested with, they do sometimes, if they can see the tarball, it will look inside the tarball. That doesn't, I know I've never seen an open source one do it, but I have definitely seen a commercial one. I'm pretty sure I think the Aqua one does it. And I think the Palo one does too. So I think there's a next level of scanner that I think this wouldn't necessarily bypass, but it's interesting how easy it was to get past, the easy stuff. So a bit clever. I mean, Rory normally does some very, very complicated, very clever things, and it's very funny that he's just like, "Wow, that was easy. Just put it in."
Yeah, at the bottom, he had a good point. Yeah.
Oh, did he? What was that?
Does it full scanners?
It's a pretty silly way to buy scanners. Yes, good conclusion.
Yeah, for sure. All right, spicy time. Yes, this is
one.
Yeah, my hot take. This one's been sitting in the weeds for a while. I've probably said it on a couple other shows, but low and medium vulnerabilities do not matter. Yes, you heard that correct. In general, on operating systems, on containers, they are so low effort, and the juice is not worth the squeeze. I'll say that, if that's the expression I can use. This has been documented by Red Hat's ProdSec, by SUSE's ProdSec. I just read an article about them saying the same thing of, hey, you're running Ubuntu, you're running RHEL, you're running CoreOS, whatever it is, and they have a low and medium vulnerability. Most likely there are security controls in place at the operating system level to mitigate it or not even be able to exploit it. At best, if you're forcing the security team to go and patch a fix, they could also be introducing something worse. So when you're looking at vulnerabilities, high, critical, important ones, extremely important, things that can be obviously exploited, or there's, you've seen it exploited in the wild, make a fix. Those are easy. But anything that's medium or low, you really have to make a business case for why you should fix it. Something that's an actively exploited, let's say it's medium and it's just on the cusp of being a high and it's been shown to be exploited. Okay. maybe there's some controls in place to mitigate it where we don't necessarily need to make a code change. We could do it at the next major release. It's not like vastly important to do it now. But in general, I think we looked at RHEL over the last year, RHEL and upstream, CentOS, and it was like 1,100 vulnerabilities associated with the project. Out of the medium to out of the low medium ones, it was like, I think 1,000 of them were low to medium. So most of them were low medium. And out of that, only one was actively shown to be exploited ever in the last year, like one. And it was fixed in one of the other releases. So the active exploit didn't really come into effect if you actually had upgraded. So it's just, I get on calls like, oh my gosh, look, ACS, look at all these low medium vulnerabilities. I can't believe that. It's like, yeah, we have one that's high and here's the mitigation for it. Why do you care? So that's just my hot take. Don't spend your time on it. Spend your time with your family, not stressing over stuff like that. I think a lot of it is just, the security teams feeling like they have to do their job, and there's a different risk assessment there. But yeah, hot take. Steve, any last words? Spot on.
What's the corrective action on that? So if we are obviously, people are finding low vulnerabilities and saying, what I need to do is report this and get a CVSS score, because if the calls are already coming from inside the house and the pants happen to be down and the window's open and I'm standing on one foot while jumping in a circle, well, we have a problem. It's like, I do wonder, like, how are so many lows getting reported and noising up the things we want to actually pay attention to? Like, should we just hold back on reporting all these mediums and lows maybe?
Yeah, I think there's some misaligned incentives there. I think security sometimes maybe needs to justify their job. I think that, but in general, I think security justifying their job comes in just keeping risk low, right? If you can keep those critical and important vulnerabilities out and misconfigurations high or down, and you have evidence that you're doing that, you have evidence that you set up the pipeline, you have evidence of all this stuff, and your CISO fires you for that, well, get a new job because your CISO sucks. But I think, if let's say the job's going well, everything's smooth, you can respond to things like Log4Shell extremely easily, and they want you to now start tackling medium vulnerabilities into the development pipeline. It's like, well, what are we doing? Like, we're doing our jobs. Our jobs are functioning perfectly, right? Now let's just do mitigation. Let's just make sure that we're on top of things and keep things running. Yeah, that was more of a medium spice take for 3-week one. But I think the hot take in there is the people aspect of stop over engineering solutions. Like, if somebody's going to hack you and they're going to exploit a low vulnerability, you are a 1 in a trillion chance, especially if it's not around crown jewels, right? Now, if you're like government, top secret, you're from like the Ark of the Covenant, Indiana Jones type stuff where you can't keep that stuff from getting out, sure, right? You might as well just unplug your computers at that point.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Okay.
Almost a double hot take.
Yeah.
Back to the show.
Yeah, we mentioned LastPass, but there's been another company that has had a hot year. That's T-Mobile.
Put this in. Oh, we didn't do it. Is T-Mobile in here?
I put it in last minute. You might have missed it. Sorry, I'll bring it up after.
All right.
If you can find it. Or are you going to try to slot it in? I made a last minute adjustment. Sorry, it's a little lost. Also, I think the Wi-Fi is just super slow over by Steve. Yeah, the CVSS scores.
Oh, hold on.
Don't get me started on CVSS scores, geek.
2 seconds. Let's do this.
Yeah, I'll start talking about it. But so T-Mobile disclosed their second data breach since the start of 2023. Yes, this incident only affected 836 customers, but the other one impacted 37 million. They obviously have to disclose each data breach. I can see Steve accepting cookies in the background, so I'm going to add it to stream. Yes,
nice.
T-Mobile strikes again. This is a pretty small one. Full name, contact information, account number, T-Mobile account PIN, social security number, government ID, date of birth. Like,
oh, good God.
Oh man, you'd hate to be those 836. I feel like if it's 836, you have to notify them all individually, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty easy because what would happen immediately afterwards is there'd be a spam campaign notifying them all individually. So how do you know the real one from the fish?
Yeah, you have to get the cops or somebody to call them, right?
Oh, okay, the social engineering calls then.
Yeah,
I think that'd be
true.
tough. The whole problem with all this is that these people are expecting someone to contact them now. It's a perfect phishing opportunity.
Yeah. So what do you do? Not contact them? Hey, you you have no clue that your life's about to get turned upside down?
Yeah, that's I don't know. You have to contact them and find a way of sending people to something that proves you're authentic and say ignore all other things.
Yeah, that's true. Well, this is definitely probably going to get sold somewhere on the internet. Whoever has the information.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's sold. I bought it.
Yeah, you bought it. If you have it, do you go for the phishing campaign right away? I feel like you use the social security number first to get as far as you can.
I go phishing campaign right away personally.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
You do have all the information. Anyways, that sucks to be one of 836 people in the United States that's with T-Mobile. Prayers out to you. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. That's tough. I mean, social security number, government ID, rate plan, feature codes, they have everything. And you're gonna have to go change your entire life. You imagine everything you have to change. It's gonna wreak havoc on your life for a couple of years. So sorry.
I suppose the reaction is if you get an email from anything that says click this for whatever, just know you're one of them. And the thing is, what I would do is I would probably, if I was phishing, I would try and I'd buy a larger list somehow of the previous hack. And then I would email all of them and say, you're one of the 836.
Ooh. Okay. Not telling you any more secrets of mine.
All right, we should move on.
Yeah, we got it's tool time to come up, and we're coming up on 15 minutes. So hackers can remotely open smart garage doors across the world. This has always kind of been known, but how easy it is now is pretty crazy.
I like that they right away said, we can do this, and the brand called Next declined to fix it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
They at least gave him a shot.
I mean, if you responsibly disclose and they go, whatever. And then you make a video and put it online, show how to do it. Yeah. And it was so easy.
Sorry, yeah, and there's a part there, completely remote anywhere in the world. The security researcher told Motherbird, describing that, have you discovered any other serious vulnerabilities? We'd love to hear from you. Using a non-work phone or computer, you can contact Joseph Cox securely or on Signal. So they must have like a single, like just one individual that you can contact about any garage issues.
It's what's fascinating about it, and actually I would encourage anybody who has anything that communicates over Wi-Fi to do this, is to just whack a man in the middle on it and see what information goes out and comes back between the communication of your device and, if it reaches out to the outside world, what does it say back to your app? And just take a look at that, because in this particular case, the response had 558 other devices and obviously enough detail for him to change the request.
Wow.
It's not like he did anything super complicated. He just checked out the API call and away he went. And it was like, okay. It is kind of nuts. There was I was on this is ages ago, but I was on a thing about 4 years ago talking about the security of apps on apps generally on phones and whatever, Android. And the interviewer, who was a BBC interviewer, so she wasn't in security. It's just like, your app's just a browser. Mm-hmm. When you're browsing and you see the little lock up in the top corner, you're like, okay, I have secure communication, everything's all good. But the apps tend to make a ton of assumptions that they are this sort of self-contained unit, and they're making similar API calls to just a website would do. And it's like, if you can get in between an app and what it's actually doing, it's shocking how bad some of the information, or how they've made it easy for themselves to write the app by putting way too much information in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, this is another example.
Yeah, I completely agree. Speaking of, let's say, assumptions, the next article is pretty good about this. It's USB plugin and how you should bring your own USB, what's it called? The little squares, chargers to plug it in. Don't plug USB cords directly into outlets. So I saw this and I had another take on it, which is in the EU, how everything's moving to USB-C only. And Apple is reluctantly doing it, but they are doing it. But what they're doing on their app, on the new phones, is they're going to say that it has to be an Apple-specific cord and charger. Otherwise, every time you plug another device in, it's going to come up with a security issue to say, are you sure you want to accept this device? Are you sure you want to accept this device? To scare people into only buying Apple cords. Which
that sounds like Apple.
Well, it's also kind of true, right? If you know that every single device is using the same cord, then it becomes a vector. It's like, okay, this actually makes sense. I can just, like, all the USB-C plugs I'm going to try to go after, right? Versus if you don't know if it's USB-C and you don't know if it's USB Thunderbolt, right? Like it becomes a little bit harder to actually do exploits like this. So it's a kind of interesting offshoot of what the original argument was, which is electronic waste. Now they're going to use security as a theater to basically say, no, you can only use our products because only we can guarantee that they're secure, which is another interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a fear-based sales tactic. I think if you're worried about this kind of stuff, which I think is reasonable, there are devices that you can plug into USB first and plug yours in, and it only allows power through.
Yep. That was the other recommendation. If you go down in like the first couple comments, that's what people are saying. Just buy a power charging cord only. You never have this issue.
Yeah, right. You can either buy a power only cable, or you can buy an adapter that blocks all data, and then you can use whatever cable you borrow or whatever. I think there are even adapters that show whether there's unnecessary data passing when you plug it in. You can buy them at DEF CON. So go to DEF CON and buy all the gadgets. That's what the protective gadgets.
Yeah. Very cool. I think we had I think we have two more WTFs. I think we gotta move. Otherwise, it's gonna be an extra long one.
Moving on. All right.
Yeah.
Twitter source code.
Twitter's source code were reportedly leaked online. So the data had been posted to GitHub, but has since been taken down. This was March 26th. This was a long time ago. But we were talking about Twitter last time and how they leaked a bunch and how they open sourced their code. And then a bunch of code was also leaked. I saw this and I thought, do you think that some of the source code was leaked in the process of trying to open source the code? Somebody just screwed up and was signed into the wrong account or something like that. But I mean, I wouldn't, I'm sure that part of, there were a ton of people that downloaded the code base and moved it off their computers during the original times of Twitter. So it could be somebody doing that stuff, but I mean, they're going after them. They're asking GitHub to get the information so that they can sue them. It's a pretty dangerous thing.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And I mean, you're pretty crazy. So we'll follow up on that one, see if anything comes of it towards the end of the year. And then the last one.
MSI.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one because it's your firmware and BIOS updates, right?
What? All right, do this one. I didn't quite.
Yes. So MSI, I believe that I don't use MSI for my Windows computer, but it's your underlying BIOS, so your boot capabilities, right? And they managed to say like, hey, you have a BIOS update, like download it from this website, and then people go and download it, and they have a backdoor into everything, right? So basically, they're just saying, hey, if you're going to download something, go through our app on our startup. We recommend you the updates. Stop clicking random third-party installers to go and update your BIOS. Pretty basic stuff, but it's just more shocking that one pretty accurate, like pretty good update. I guess it fooled a bunch of people. And just the fact that they targeted that. Right. So, I mean, what are you going through an internet? I just wonder how it popped up. You going through an internet browser and all of a sudden somebody said, hey, update your BIOS? Because that almost never happens, right?
No, but I don't really have faith in the general PC user. I mean,
there's almost too much flexibility in what they can and can't do, or yeah, I mean, that's the strength
what they'll
of Macs, right?
Yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah. And now we're going to spend some money, right? I think that's the...
Let's do it. All right, another pile of money to a security company that I once again never heard of.
Yeah, Safe Security, 50 million funding from Sorensen Capitals. Capital, not Capitals.
Capital and others.
Yes, Fidelity Investments were also among the listed there. Series B funding. I wonder what that puts them at.
Well, they had 33 before. Not too bad. Are they? See, it says one of UK's largest that's BT. So where is Safe Security based?
So this says it's an Indian start. Wait, so it says, I think it's an Indian startup. The Indian startup ecosystem saw a 75% year-on-year decline in funding from the first quarter.
Oh,
I think it's Indian, which might be why we haven't heard of it.
But I don't know. These articles drive me nuts when it's like, just put a link to them here.
Yeah, they don't want to.
So we can.
I'd also look at the founders. I'm pretty sure it's
in
in India. So I was looking at the founders too. But yeah, I was like, where? It's kind of crazy. That is actually a great strategy, though, if you were in a different country. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say, you look at like companies like Red Hat. Let's say they're selling into India. Everything's open source. You go become somebody that works at Red Hat. You get enthralled into the open source communities. Then you figure out, oh, like I can take these applications and build something that's more local. And you just become a consultant, right? Kind of genius. / take it. And it just really depends on how the money's going to flow. But, you know, countries do like buying from companies within their own country.
Hold on. Let's just do a little bit of.
No, there you go. Machine learning and generative AI.
Breach likelihood. Ooh, I kind of like the sound of that, actually.
Yeah, we got to try it out. Oh, we have to schedule a demo. Boo.
Okay, but you're not in.
Yeah.
Moving on.
But it actually is pretty interesting. I'm just kind of curious as to how they get that rank.
Yeah. So you may have to show the next one. I should have seen this before. Look, this is typical. The article from CoinDesk got blocked.
Okay.
Let's.
This is a pretty small one, anyways. It's a Web3 security startup. Shield.
There, I got it.
I'm surprised that Shield is even a name.
Offensive internal security. Web3 security startup Shield raised.
Yeah, pre-seed funding.
So Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, small one, but it is Web3, so it's obviously one of the hot topics.
It is indeed.
The Web3 has kind of gone away in popularity lately. I'm not sure if anyone's seeing a insurgence lately. I think people are more worried with the economy than they are with their Bitcoin trading.
It seems like it's just tiptoeing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it comes out of a incubation program. That's not a ton of money.
No. That is like, hey, you 5 people keep developing for 2 years and then come to us with a product for Series A.
Yeah, or even the seed. It's pre-seed. I mean, they don't really be taken too seriously, but they've obviously got some good ideas. So well done. And they did come out of a program designed to generate these kind of startups. So this could just be an experiment from from A16Z.
Crypto is so 2020. Crypto AI. Yeah. Yeah. Very well said, geek.
Nice.
All right. We have one
Okay.
vulnerability. I don't know if you get a chance to read through
Oh.
it, but it's cookie time.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Google Cloud Platform.
Yes, an API issue. Security experts.
Officially lost threat
at SAC.
actors. Yeah.
Go ahead, take it
Yeah,
away.
this is cool. Steal the private keys from cloud servers accounts. That's bad. Is there a good description of how it takes place? Oh, okay. So if you expose the cloud asset inventory API, all users who had this exposed to the vulnerability. Oh boy. Okay. But I mean, wait, hold on. But doesn't that just sound a little bit like previously, where we were like, well, if you've enabled this API that gives you all the information and you've exposed that, then people can get all the information?
Yeah, and it's shocking. It's also one of the issues with the cloud services. As they build up their own security tools, they have to access all of their applications, which means that they build systems in place to access all their applications, which means that if you have those authentication capabilities, you now have access. It's yeah, it's one of the issues with API security. Now, it's the reading is fine. I guess that's the issue, is they had the ability for CSPMs to go in, query the API, get a list of all the resources, tokens, and things like that, which they could then use to gain more persistent access. And yeah, so if you give the capabilities, maybe you should put the tokens and authentication stuff behind a different API, maybe separate, maybe not with the list of all the other resources. Not exactly sure what the query was, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. You heard it here first, kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they fixed it pretty quickly, though. It was probably just some sort of, like, if you query the API down into the sub and you just do a full one, you get a certain amount of information out, and they probably put like something under the wrong like API. It was supposed to be separate, and then they put it underneath the wrong one, and they gave away too much information. It's probably one of those.
Yeah, that could be. That sounds like it.
Yeah,
that's a good interpretation.
Got to go refactor. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's been a long week. All right, let's get let's get into the demo.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Yes, it is tool time. Let me get into KubeVisor real quick. I got to present my screen. By the way, there's almost nothing worse than doing live demos to an audience where they're not with you. Like if you go on site to somebody and you're giving a demo across a desk, you can actually answer questions. You have uninterrupted conversation. But when I'm giving a demo and I'm presenting to a team that's in a room, that is nerve-wracking as hell. That sucks. It's so much worse. I don't know.
Totally agree.
Do not like it. All right. KubeVisor. I need to zoom in. This is widescreen. We can probably layer ourselves on this one.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Zoom in a little bit more. All right. So first thoughts, you look at this. Focus on potential issues, quick access, easy to use alerting, low overhead, low data. I can confirm all these things just from using it. Yes. I was delightedly surprised by this workflow. So I'm going to sign in. It's all right. You can't see any of my stuff. This thing's going to be expired. And why is it not picking up? Go. Thank you. 1Password. I did not set up 2-factor yet. And sorry for this being a little slow. My computer has been on the fritz with anytime I share screen lately. I haven't said on the fritz in a while. Wow, I'm getting old. All right, so you sign in. The setup process is really easy. It's like name your cluster. You can pick Kubernetes, the big cloud providers, or I think VMware was in there, which now I'm pissed. I got to go be like, why isn't OpenShift in there? Come on, guys. So pretty simple. If you're using like just bare bones Kubernetes, actually here, I can just do an ad. So let's say we want cloud cluster mode. My cluster is configured. You can just go through, click it, select your kubeconfig file. So this is just for the bare bones Kubernetes, regular. Just give it the kubeconfig file and it'll use those permissions. However, if you're in Google Cloud, this is a weird one. So when I picked Google Cloud and I dropped it in, it didn't work. So I think this was like a little bug because I checked the connection and it would say like, oh, please upload the kubeconfig file. For some reason, when I said add cluster and I just clicked that, like this thing went away and it worked in a, I don't know, the workflow was a little bit funky, but it could just be my setup. Now, yeah, so agent mode. So I think that there's two ways. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, so the agent mode being, hey, here's the cluster. I'm going to add a Google cluster. Let's say it's cluster 2. Add it. And you basically run this command for the agent mode.
see.
Okay. Now, that's right. I need to correct myself. I'm just being dumb. So the cloud version is you give it the kubeconfig file for it to go and install it. The agent mode is you install the agent yourself and make sure you run through into the Helm chart and manage it all. But your end, they probably should do a type thing in there to make it harder to delete. But the end goal is this. You have health, nodes, CPU, RAM, workload, reservation, reservation. You click in, you get this. And it actually took you through and showed you, hey, this is how you click into this. This is like how you can go in. It gave you like one of those little in-screen walkthroughs the first time you use it.
Like the Pendo things.
Yeah, exactly. The Pendo things. Thank you for that. Shows you the nodes. Hit system health, CPU usage, RAM usage, workload, reservation. This was red before because I had one pod that wasn't pulling. So the workload was showing 29 out of 30 being active, which is kind of interesting. You can click right through. And what I like too is this kind of like lines up a little bit. So as you read down, you're like, okay, configuration, blah, blah, blah. What's this issue here? You click in and it just shows, hey, you're using this API in one of your workloads. It's going to be removed. Hey, you're using this at some point. It's going to be removed or deprecated, not planned for removal yet. And then it shows you how to fix it. This one's not really as useful, but it's just basically saying, hey, watch out for these. You may experience issues when upgrading your cluster. Pretty cool. You can't really click into these things when they're green. So I did have a pod not ready. I really should not have uninstalled it, but because it was good to see the red. But I thought what was interesting is you go into security and it shows you all the privileged pods.
Ooh.
Yeah. And what I like about this, probably the most, is I go through and I can see the ones that I've installed, but maybe I give a crap about kube proxy on GKE. So I can just Command C, little asterisk, hit that, gone. What do I see it gone? Oh, hey, I don't care about the kube system resources, comma, on. So now I only have my 2. So I can get rid of those defaults, right?
Cool.
Which I also kind of like that it showcased these because I know, a lot of the cloud providers, they pull all of their resources away. So you don't see it for multiple reasons. One, they manage the control plane nodes. And then 2, you don't see the vulnerability associated with the control plane. That's multiple reasons why they do that. So that was really cool. Pods with read write, same thing, right? You can see all of certain things that are in kube system. And what's really cool about this part is the GKE metrics agent. Like, let's say I want to get rid of this. This also gets rid of it on the alerting schedule. So the more I go through and I get rid of this I don't want, by the way, I don't like how this should be bigger. I should be able to pull this down a little bit.
So you're adding exclusions, but it remembers the exclusions after you close?
Correct. Yeah. So these are exclusions just for alerting across the entire thing. So if I save these parameters and I go up to alerts, and let's say I want to say some pods aren't ready. Some pods are restarting too much. Some jobs are in error. Part of the cluster workflow is that I can go to this. Like, let's say there's a pod that's not ready, but I don't care about it. I can put an asterisk around it and just ignore it, right, for alerting. That was the other thing. I just realized this. There's no alerting on the security stuff.
Oh. It's more operational, isn't it?
Yeah, this is all operational stuff. I think that's got to come next, right? So they have this workflow where it's cluster, it's workloads. So basically I can say some pods are in the not ready state. Maybe. So I had this. I hit select all last night when I was testing this out, and I had 30 messages within 1 minute. Just ding, 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 ding. Because I also had a couple of workloads that weren't running. For every pod that doesn't define a health check, like I have just these crappy demo apps. They don't have health checks.
Yeah, right.
So for every single demo app, it was like, this doesn't have health check. This doesn't have health check. This doesn't have health check. It's a pain in the ass. That being said, you could just go in here and where is the health check?
Pods without probes.
Am I missing this? Maybe it doesn't have it here.
I thought
Workloads health.
So
I think it should be there. So my understanding was if you go to alerts, you can also configure it. So if I go to parameters, see these filters, like pods using host path, privilege pods. These are all. Yeah, it's weird. Parameters to ignore.
Huge containers. That's pretty cool.
So yeah, when I look at this, I say custom triggers so if you can ignore these things so that you don't get an alert, but then you look at this and some of these don't actually match up with the alerts. Some jobs are in error, but then when you go to parameters, it's like, okay, well, can I ignore some of the errors? No, I can't ignore errors here. So that's probably one of the issues. They don't exactly, like the workflow doesn't exactly match up. But in general, I mean, just a node is down. If a node goes down, I'll get an email. Like pretty much right away. CPU usage is too high. I did think it's kind of an interesting way to get started, get set up, make changes. You want to go look at privileged pods. You click on it. It says the consequence, how to fix is recommended to you avoid using this in the capabilities field. There was like legit ones that actually gave you a bit of code. Well, let's see if I can bring this up real quick.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. GitHub. All right, give me 2 seconds. Any questions? What are you thinking?
Well, my question was going to save to the end is, I think how you've done, like, I don't know, it feels like half a dozen of these security/operational dashboards in the past year. Like, was this a standout? I mean, was this a standout one? Because you seemed to have a really positive impression at the beginning.
Yeah, I think how easy it was to get going, how easy it was just to see the usage, what's going wrong. Are there any major issues? Yeah, so I'm installing a Spring for Shell namespace that's going to have a workload where the image does not get pulled. So it's going right now. It just set it up. I just got an error about it. So typically what happens is like there will be a job in error or pod not ready that comes in here, and it will give you the command to search for it, to say, hey, here, let's go and look at this.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So see how these deployments, you have 28 of 28. Oh yeah, and this is the other thing too, is the times at the top, I can go back 5 minutes.
Ooh, I like that. Why do I think wasn't there something in StackRox/ACS that was a little bit like that?
Yeah, the runtime detection shows you all the events. Same with like network traffic. It shows you the last time. It could show you the last hour, the last month, and all that.
That was it.
The issue with the network graph querying for that long is you do have to make some consolidations in order to shrink the space.
Fair enough. It reminded me of something. So where does it is it storing Where's it storing that information over
Yeah,
time?
I think this is all cloud, right? This is all SaaS.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Of course. Of course.
Yeah, still has not picked it up. Yeah, Spring for
It's definitely
Show
there,
app,
actively
image.
failing.
Yeah, it's image pullback off 73 seconds ago. So I'm wondering how often it queries, because it looks like when you go back in time, it's querying 5 minutes, right?
Oh, good point. Right. Like, what is the increment?
Yeah. Yeah. So see how if you look at this, it'll show you pods that have unusual restarts, how to fix. It shows you the check namespace events with JQ. It'll give you a specific one, although that's all the question mark shows. Auto refresh. Okay, let's see how delayed this is, because I'm thinking of a couple issues with this right now. If it's every 5 minutes, then you should be able to turn that up, right? So one of the reasons why it's low data is because it's not pulling often. That's not really, people are going to want to say, hey, like I need to know if anything happens within a minute or within a certain amount of time. They have these weird, you have to tell me this right away, right?
Maybe there's a paid. I don't know. You're doing the free trial, right?
Yeah.
I do wonder if like a paid version, because they don't want to give you. They're not going to check your cluster every second if you're on the free version.
Maybe, but also, I think you're not necessarily telling people what your product's like if you do that, right? If you all of a sudden have feature gates that are after the free trial, you should make that abundantly clear, right?
Yeah.
I think what this is, because it's no credit card, it's a free trial. You sign up with your email. So my theory is that this is their beta, this is their alpha test. They're going to put it out there, see what people use, they're tracking stuff, and then they have all the email lists of people that have tried it. So you're starting your sales funnel already, right?
Yep.
And that when they're ready to actually launch this thing to be like launched, it'll be a hard launch. Hey, contact you. Yeah, we'll see when I get an email from them. I'll let you know. But that's my going theory. Still,
well, the guy who did this is asked us to do it, so he's going to watch this.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say okay. So if install setup, I give a 9 out of 10. Just that one thing. That's more my issue, that I couldn't figure out like what the difference between cloud and agent was. Maybe like, kubeconfig versus agent for installation issues, but that's just the way I think. I don't think like cloud means, running a command in the CLI.
Right.
The dashboard itself, when you get in, super easy to walk through and get installed. I think that the breakdown of cluster nodes status statistics, I think is great, just from a dashboard perspective. I'm wondering if people are going to get to the edit point where it's like, I don't really care about RAM. Like, can I edit any of these tiles? Now you're getting more into Prometheus type stuff. I do think the security stuff is pretty spot on. The recommendations, how to fix, tech support's right there. Namespace without network policies, how to fix. Default deny, allow DNS access, still in trouble. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I'd look up the MP Guard project for actual network policy recommendations. You can get that, right? So it just runs in the background, looks at all the files, and then generates the network policies. That would be cool. That'd be a next step. But it's lived up to it. This is the issue now, though. Is it's been 5 minutes. Okay, grabbing fresh data.
It was just there. It actually showed up just before that came up.
So I think
I saw
that it's definitely getting throttled a little bit, probably just to save money while you're doing a free trial, right? Because you do a free trial, you don't want like 1,000 people to sign up, and all of a sudden your bill is ridiculously expensive. So I have a feeling.
You broke it.
So see now, the workload's red. Deployments 29 out of 30. That's no bueno. So this one, it's just saying a description of the tile. It would be interesting if it told me exactly what one was wrong when you click the top, because now I'm just like, it's just explaining to me what a workload is. which is fine. You go down to pods and error, and then it says, yeah, see, here are, had a failure by checking the pods logs. If you want to check the logs of the pod's previous run, if I run this, I'm not going to swap over because we're running out of time, but yeah, it just says error from server, bad request is waiting to start and failing to pull image, right? So I do that and it tells me, yeah, your image is going to have an issue. Maybe a kubectl, describe pods could be added there. Here's the namespace, here's it, because if the pod's not up, you're not going to get any information. You need to go to the describe to see the issues. But yeah, I would say that if you're a company and you're doing something in the cloud on-prem with a couple clusters, small, medium business, and you're looking to get going, I think that fits your use case. I think you have a lot of information here that you can funnel back into, let's say you're running Terraform or Ansible or something like that to get your cluster started on-prem or in the cloud. And you look to make these changes, you make the changes, you add network policies, you do all that stuff in your deployments. I guess, how do you make this product sticky though?
Not a problem.
Not a problem? Yeah, not a problem. Yeah.
Good question though. Good question for the creators. How are you making money off of it?
Yeah, overall, I thought it was really good. The alerting setup was very easy. I'd say the typical workflow would be install it, take the information, make all your changes to get your cluster somewhat into the green space, and then slowly, set up your alerts. Because I signed in with my email, I was the only one that got alerts. I'm kind of curious that if, I'm assuming once you pay for it, you can set up multiple emails and you're going to have a triage, right? So it's like multiple people get different emails.
Is that the only way to alert? Because I think internally we would use a webhook to send messages to a Slack channel.
Yep. That is the only way right now that I see.
Okay.
I didn't see any sort of adjustment. You have alerts and there's no editing here. It's very, very simple, very straightforward. If I hit the power button, I sign out. You might want to put a little thing to tell people that they're signing out when they hit the power button.
Yep.
Just an FYI. I understand it, but I remember looking around for just navigating the dashboard and it's this is obvious. It's the parameters. If I click it, I'm going to get the parameters, but what does this do? It just goes yellow. Let me do that. I did that last night too. Got to keep it super stupid simple for me.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, overall, I thought it's a really cool project. Yeah. And one of, we see a lot of open source dashboards. They always have their very hot take on what a dashboard should look like. This just fit. I'd say the flow was good. The vernacular was good. There's no weird redefining of what a deployment is. It was just workloads. Here's what it is. It's a workload, which I liked.
Nice.
Yeah.
A lot of cool. My comment on the layout was that it doesn't conform with some of the more let's make our dials really big, and then the just tiny little dials because I see what I want, but then just a big bank of information in columns that not too much. I like that.
Yep.
And then I can drill down because those big pretty pictures with dials and movie bits, they really show you one parameter, but I occupy a ton of real estate.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. And you can't click through them, and it's just what? How many pie charts can you fit on a page, guys? Come on.
It's none. So a big table full of numbers I like.
Yeah, very accurate. I wonder how. Yeah, Steve fell in a well. Yeah, your microphone. Something happened to your microphone. It turned off or got disconnected or something like that. So.
Oh shit! All right.
Sorry, we didn't want to hear your voice anyways. We wanted to get out of here and enjoy our Friday.
Hold on, let's fix it.
We got 1 minute. Yeah, there you go. He's back.
It did. My mic actually almost did fall in a well.
There you go. Yeah, I like the flow. I really feel pain for people who have to design these things because everybody likes their own data a specific way. And I mean, that's the benefit of something like Prometheus, right? Or Grafana, I should say, not Prometheus. Just that ability to structure things how you want it. That obviously is extremely heavy.
Cool. And we are over time. That was a great demo.
Thank you. Yeah, very over time. Thanks, Geek, for joining along with some other people who have filtered in and out. Yeah, we kind of ran this one on the fly, but we will be back in 2 weeks. Steve is still vacationing next week, and we hope that he'll have a better Wi-Fi in 2 weeks when he does a demo. I don't know. Do you know what you're going to do in 2 weeks?
I'll still be here. I'm here till the 22nd.
That's right. Okay, so you're here till then, but we're doing one in 2 weeks, and then I'm going to Red Hat Summit, so I have some takes on that as well the following week. And yeah, should be good.
Sweet. All right.
Other than that,
Great show.
happy.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah, happy Cinco de Mayo.
Oh,
Happy Cinco de Mayo. That's Steve Jaguar. I'm Mike Foster. We'll see you in 2 weeks.